Good morning, and thank you, Rotarians, for inviting me to participate in this initiative. ENCORE, Rotary remains relevant. The world needs more Rotarians, and your service around the world shines a beacon of hope to so many. So continue to be that ambassador of hope as we move forward in a new day, both in Rotary and in the world. Speaking of the world, there's been an ever-changing paradigm in how the future of work will become. So let's talk about this, how it relates to the Rotary and its four-way test, the things we think, say, and do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? The future of work can be encapsulated in just three evolutionary shifts. And those shifts will take place in space, culture, and our systems. So let's take a moment to start with space. Talent mobility and workforce flexibility will be the key to future business. So where does it start? It starts with individuals and teams and where and how and when they work. We have become a global society and a global economy. It's quite evident. And even with current events, Ukraine, the pandemic, this is not changing, and it will only become more prevalent as time goes by. So it's important for companies to figure out how they're going to be able to tap talent, move people around, and stay connected to make sure that they have a continuous line of products and services, but also stay relevant. Let's focus a little bit on the US. What we're seeing through the pandemic and what we'll continue to see is a trend to live in one city or state and work for a company that's in another. This actually brings a level of equity for people. Maybe you work for a company in a big city, but the cost of living is so high, maybe you can't afford a house, so you're renting. But the ability to move and work somewhere else can allow you to purchase that house, allow you to gain equity and better use of your income. There's also the opportunity to move to be closer to family, maybe for health reasons. But we don't have to leave that untapped talent sitting on the sideline because you're not physically in the place your company is located. This is going to continue to grow. And so we have to be able to be adaptable to reach out and connect that talent no matter where they are. There's also going to be a greater need to focus on time management and efficiency. One of the things we learned through the pandemic is how much time we saved on our morning and evening commutes. I know I have. And so being able to work remotely allows people to maybe start work early, finish early, and then take care of things like their kids' activities in the evenings or fix that healthy meal for dinner. All these things are important as we reshift and rechange our lives and find out what works best for us to be efficient on our jobs and effective in our work. One of the things that we're seeing, and I think will probably be the ultimate compromise, is a hybridization where people will work both a few days a week remotely and a few days a week in the office. Or maybe that's on a monthly basis or a semi-monthly basis. Again, it's about adaptability and allowing people to make some choices that benefit their lives, empower them to do their jobs well, and innovate, both for the corporate world and for nonprofits that we work in. One of the things that will have to take place is performance management and engagement. We're used to talking to people one-on-one, face-to-face in the office setting. And now, how do you manage employees who are remote? How do you ensure that they're getting the work done? How do you ensure they're engaged in your team or in your company? These are big changes for managers, but they're all very doable as well. And part of that comes from remote employees taking charge of their own professional development and their work. So as a young person entering the workforce now, it's very important that if you choose the remote avenue and you have that opportunity, you have a strong voice for yourself, and that you are understanding how to connect with your team, your managers, and your employer, so you remain relevant. The second area I'd like to talk about is talent recruitment and turnover. We saw the great resignation over the last year and a half. Why? Because people slowly figured out what works best for them, and they wanted to make some change. Companies will need to adapt to the greater frequency of turnover, as it's not in vogue anymore to stay in your job for 30 years at the same company. People are looking for opportunities. Maybe it's a vertical shift, or maybe it's a horizontal shift, or maybe it's doing a different job completely in a different company. But people are looking to find stepping stones that lead to that career laddering. So how do we build talent pipelines? How do we find folks who can come in and fill roles? And that's going to be a great stressor for HRs. That means, again, greater engagement, more diverse engagement, understanding how to capitalize on things like social media, Zoom, for instance, to meet and talk to people. And we'll talk a little bit more later, but the main key to the success is diversity. Companies who focus on creating an inclusive workforce are more likely to find and keep talent, much like some of our initiatives in Rotary that I'm proud to say. Companies need to create clear career ladders. Employees need to understand what skills and talent they need to bring, enhance, or gain in order to move up that ladder within a given company. And of course, the company wants to make sure that they have the best talent all the time. So it's important that they make those roadmaps very clear and provide tools and avenues for them to gain the skills necessary to grow. One thing that's interesting is, will there be bias towards folks who are not in the office versus the ones who are? So remote employees must find ways to stay relevant and stay in front of senior leadership. Also very close to, we've had to deal with in Rotary the last 2 years with having our Zoom meetings instead of in person. We've done everything from just a couple weeks ago, the Council of Legislation, where we had a hybrid meeting of people in person and on Zoom. Rotary has figured out how to utilize this technology for the benefit of all, and still allowing everybody to have a voice in the future of their clubs and their districts and Rotary internationally as well. This must be the same in the office setting. And that just because you don't see somebody physically doesn't mean that they're not relevant, that they're not bringing their talent, their hard work to the table. Another question work psychologists are trying to figure out is, does working remotely reduce burnout? So maybe it's paradoxical, and maybe actually we'll keep and retain talent longer because folks have more flexibility around their day. And lastly, let's talk about global teams and the usage of apps and technologies to connect to one another. Much like we are today on Zoom and with folks all over the world have been on this call in the last 2 days. And there's tons of apps now that allow people to connect in different ways for meetings, for planning, for strategic planning, for editing papers. We must continue to utilize and strengthen our skill sets around these areas in order to connect with team members who are all over the world, and to keep that synergy and keep that innovation moving forward. So digital investments will be critical for companies to make. So let's talk about what about work hours, right? Do people need to have that typical 9-to-5 job, or can they work hours where they're most efficient? Or what if you have a team member that's on the other side of the world? How do you create equity with that person? Those are all things we're going to figure out in the future. But the good news, the younger talent coming in the world of work, understand this better, understand the technology better, we'll be able to help corporations make this shift. Another thing may be flexible deadlines within reason. But as we move around the world, have different hours of work, we need to negotiate between managers and teams to get things done at timeframes that make sense for them. So let's move on to culture. Work culture is a collection of attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors that make up the regular atmosphere of a work environment. Healthy work environments align employee behaviors and company policies with the overall goals of the company, while also considering the well-being of the individual. This may be the most important aspect of a successful company moving forward. It's creating a culture of inclusion, of self-responsibility, of a place where people feel proud to work in. Because if you do those things, your company will have a strategic advantage over a company who is inflexible. And this all starts with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Again, in our own organization here in Rotary, it's become critically important to our success in the long term. How many groups of people have been not really included, not on purpose, but just generally have not been in Rotary? Women, people of color, people with disabilities. And we're starting to change this because we're leaving a lot of great talent on the sidelines, a lot of great Rotarians who can make a difference on the sidelines. And so I'm very proud to see all the steps that this zone and our district around the world, our district in particular, and districts around the world are doing to change this. In the labor force, slow labor growth equals an evenly distributed workforce by age, sex, race, ethnicity, you name it. So now we're seeing this as people shift, leave jobs. We saw sort of a turn down in growth during the pandemic. It's picked back up now. And when employers needed people, guess what? They had to find alternative means to find them. So what did they do? They diversified their portfolios of talent. They looked in unusual places to find people who have the right skill sets and knowledge. And it's actually making the company stronger. One of the things we're also seeing is increasing participation rates of women and those people with disabilities. Remote work allows for greater inclusion. And this is key to strengthening the workforce in the United States. Again, it's tapping into that untapped talent. And that's what we're going to see moving forward more and more. And what that creates for companies is something called the diversity dividend. Recently, the Harvard Business Review published a study where homogeneous teams had problems with decision making, and they suffered from it. What they did see, though, is gender diversity increased the profitability of these companies by 21%, and ethnic diversity increased these companies' profits by 33%. And so this is something I talk about in Rotary a lot, but generally it's applicable to the business world. It's also applicable to us in Rotary. If we want to get more projects done, we want to raise more money, we want to do bigger things and change the world, we must be an inclusive organization. So let's take a minute and talk about leadership, collaboration, and problem solving. Work must have meaning and importance for individuals and for the society that transcend merely the economic and the financial. As new young employees enter the workforce, they have high expectations that these companies are not just benefiting themselves, but they're benefiting their communities and the society. If you want to retain and find the best talent in the world as a corporate leader, then you must abide by these standards that have been set. Think about it for a second. What if you knew your work contributed to the greater good? Think about all the companies that promote this in their messaging. It's a paradigm shift for a lot of companies, but what it's also doing is making them stronger. Work is central for human activity, critical of self-realization and social cohesion. Mental health, community engagement, and self-actualization take place a lot of times in your work. So it's important to give employees meaningful jobs, allow them to do those jobs, and support them in growing. Again, a focus on stakeholder impact as well as shareholder impact is crucially important. Companies are seeing the strategic advantage of being good community members, and Rotary is a great partner to make that happen. So lastly, let's take just a quick second to talk about systems, data, and technology. Shifting work from completion to problem solving. That's what we're going to continue to see. And interpreting and utilizing data to develop competitive advantage. So employees must be able to strengthen their problem solving skills and use data to strengthen the companies. Learning and innovation will be taking place on a rapid pace. The embracement of experimentalization and calculated risk instead of redefining processes and products. Learn as you go. Adoption of flat management styles such as hierarchy. So think about GORE, the company that makes Gore-Tex. The company uses a lattice structure, a team-based environment that encourages personal initiatives and person-to-person communication. The same with Rotary. Generally how our clubs work, right? Adaptable to what we need to get done today and what we need to get done for tomorrow. Skill sets going into the new world be things like cross-functionality. It's not knowing one thing, it's knowing many things and being able to switch projects on a moment's notice. It's about adaptability to ever-changing environment, which we constantly see. It used to be change happened on a monthly or annual basis. Now it's happening sometimes multiple times a day. And be able to fix supply chains or jump on a different project to solve a problem in a different part of the world happens at lightning speed. And we need employees who will be able to do this and not be flustered that they're working on multiple products at once. And lastly, it's important to focus on other success as much as your own. That's leadership. Folks, that's Rotary. That's today. That's what we're doing here at Rotary Works. We're growing our talent. We're making a difference. We're changing lives. That doesn't stop outside of the Rotary hours. And that's what makes this organization very unique. That the people within this organization are also leaders in the companies and organizations they work for. And they take this ethos into those organizations. and they empower their staff and their coworkers. And to me, that's really the future of work. A place where everybody succeeds, everybody's talent is utilized and respected, and perspectives that are different are taken into account. And when you're able to do that, you're able to move mountains, just like we do in Rotary. Think about all the projects that we do around the world on a daily basis. This happens because we're adaptable. We understand our environment, and we bring in diverse talent to solve problems. So I'd like to leave you with a couple of things. One, if you want to learn more about how work is going to be in the future and the skill sets you need to learn, both soft skills and hard skills, I'm going to give you 3 books. 1, Organizational Culture and Leadership by Edgar Schein. 2, Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull, the former founder and CEO of Pixar. And 3, The Outward Mindset by the Arbiter Institute. If you read nothing else but those 3 books, you'll be very successful moving forward in your careers and as Rotarians. So again, it's about changing hearts and minds around the world in Rotary. But it's also about changing hearts and minds in a corporate setting. We have unbelievable power in our numbers. We have unbelievable power in our experiences. We have unbelievable power in our faith to one another and in one another. So that's why I see so much the future of work is so inextricably tied to the future of Rotary. Because these core values that we believe in are what going to make a difference for us and for the world's economy moving forward. So thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of this amazing, amazing day, full of leaders who are inspiring the world. And thank you for coming to be a part of this extraordinary initiative. I look forward to seeing you all down the road. And I look forward to seeing the rest of this conference. But again, continue to be ambassadors of hope. Thank you.